Hey there. So I own a 2016 Kia Sorento. It's a EX with a standard stereo, the standard kind of UVO, but not the Prime with the Infinity. I have never ever been happy with it since the day that I bought my car. It's now been about 4 years of ownership, and I actually had my antenna die. There's actually an amplifier inside that shark fin. And as long as I was having to take a few things apart to deal with that, I finally decided to do some more research on radios that you can put in aftermarket into this car. And there's a lot more out there than there was when I first looked a few years back. Number one, the place to go to is crutchfield.com. That is my go-to place. I've gotten a couple different radios from there. So let me show you what I got so far. I'm going to kind of piece this video together from different parts of the process. And here we go. I hope this becomes helpful to some folks that are out there. So this is my stereo. This is AM. I like to listen to news radio a lot.
Back to the president's remarks, there's an investigation ongoing. So I spoke to him earlier, and he was not willing to wait.
And you can tell that the audio is kind of crap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order a new Kenwood unit. I'll show you more information on that later. But the first thing I wanted to kind of play with was the trim. So this trim comes off with a tool. I'm trying to do this one-handed, which is not happening. We're going to try this again. And that's all there is to it. You get that trim tool under there and you pop this bad boy out. And that actually will come out all around. I'm going to pop the other side off here. You got to really get in there and dig. There we go. And this whole thing, I got to take out my phone holder here. And so this trim comes out fairly easy. It just pops out. It comes with the two vents that are there. You can see that there's some clips all the way around the edge. The first time you take this out might be a little trickier. And that's the stereo. And to pull this guy out, all you got to do is remove 2 screws on the left side, 2 screws on the right side, unplug your connectors and go to town. There is going to be a pair of brackets that are behind this radio that will have to be cut out to put the bigger one in. I'll show that later as well. But while I'm waiting for that radio, it's going to take a couple of weeks. It's on back order. I want to talk about the USB ports. So the new radio is going to have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And as most of you know, the existing USB port for the Sorento is down here. I got a USB stick in there. I'll pull that out. So that's the USB port. And that USB port is not usable with any aftermarket radio. There's a little circuit board back there. God knows what it does. But we need to I want to take that out, and I'm going to replace this right here with the 2 USB ports that belong to make my radio functional. I could also mount the USB ports right up here on the new dash kit. The new dash kit is going to the dash kit will basically take up the exact same spot that this radio does. The radio, the new one, only goes out to about here, and about the left side inch and the right side inch are going to be just plastic. I could mount the USB ports there, but I'm not going to, because I'm kind of fussy about cables. I don't want my USB cable hanging from my radio all the time. I'd rather have it way down here where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So we got to get that guy out. And the way that you do that is you have to pop this out. These are all pressure clips, by the way. There's no screws. So you got to get in there with your trim tools. You got to pop this guy out, and then you got to get underneath the edges of this, and this whole thing comes out. You can see that I have removed it already once. I've disconnected a power connector that's in there. And then I'm going to do this tomorrow, but then this tray where the USB port is, that tray is held in by two screws, one on the front, one on both sides. So we're going to pull that out next because I want to prep my USB connections and get that all wired up and ready before my radio gets here. So that's it for this installment. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, so we're back in the vehicle, and I have actually already removed this, but this comes out very easy. The screws have been removed. You just kind of lift hard on the front to lift this guy up, and once you lift it, you kind of just rotate it this way, like that. You lift up the front, and then you kind of tip it up and pull it up. To do that, just a word of caution, your stick shift is going to be in the way if you are in park. You will not be able to get it out. So start your vehicle, put it in drive, get your foot on the brake, and don't let go. And it'll only take a second. Once you get the radio up, or I'm sorry, once you get this this little basket here up and out of the way, then you can put the shifter back in park, and you're golden. So in the back, if you look, you can see I have removed the USB port. It's actually a module. It's I don't know, it's about the size of a pack of cigarettes, I guess. And just a word of note, it's held in there by a clip on the module itself that you have to you gotta kind of push it in from each side to get that out. And just a word of note, it's a bitch. Those clips are very strong. You have to push very, very hard to get that module out, but be patient, take time, you'll get it out. And so meanwhile, I've kind of dropped things back in here. I don't want my the guts of my car showing, but on the positive note, you know, when I look down here, I'll be able to take an opportunity to vacuum in here. Obviously some dust and debris have gotten in here over the years. So anyway, the next thing I'll be showing you after this will be taking that module apart and putting the USB extension cables in there. I ordered those from Amazon. They're about, I don't know, $8 a piece. And they'll be here tomorrow, so we'll be doing that in the next day. That's it for today. So this is the USB module that I've pulled out. It actually comes apart quite easily. Right here, you can see right here, these are the clips that I was talking about that you have to press in super hard, really hard with the screwdriver to get out. You gotta press that all the way in to get that to release from that basket thing that sits underneath the dashboard. Keep trying, you'll eventually get it out. Anyway, the only pieces that we're going to keep are the cover here and and the body, just the black parts. The white insert and the circuit board can be discarded. You will not need those. So once my cables show up, the next part will be to drill this out, cut this out so that I have two larger rectangular holes for the USB connectors. Based on what I believe to be the measurements for the front plates of those USB connectors, they should literally just fit on this unit. They'll go end to end, but it'll be a snug fit, but it should be nice. So we just got to wait for the cable. Just a word about cables on the back of that that front tray that sits underneath the dashboard. When you pull that out of your car, you're going to be disconnecting 3 cables. 2 cables will come from this module. The one on the left is for the USB port, and the one on the right is for the aux port that's on front there. Once you disconnect those, you will not ever connect those back. Those will not be used with the new radio. Just tape them off and hide them in the car somewhere that's out of the way. There is a third cable that connects to that tray. That just provides that red LED light that lights up the front of it. So when you put that tray back, you'll want to reconnect that cable. But these cables, the two that came out of the back of this module, you will not need those. Just a side note, depending on your radio, if you have a whole bunch of other auxiliary inputs, outputs, such as video and even HDMI that you want to use, Access, AXS, ESS makes this product, AXUSB-HK3. If you look very carefully, that module fits exactly in the spot that I removed from that lower tray in my Sorento, and it will apply to a lot of other Hyundai Kia cars as well. It comes with 2 USB ports and a bunch of other stuff. I'm opting not to do it. I really don't want to spend $42 on something that has a bunch of ports that I personally will never use, and my stereo doesn't have some of these other connections. I don't have HDMI, etc., so I don't need to pay for that. But you might. The other thing is that those 2 USB ports are kind of close. On mine, when I get my USB ports installed, they will be next to each other with plenty of space in between. But I wanted to point this out as an option for you. Again, if you look, it's got that exact same little bracket tab thing on the side as the module that I have here. It should be an exact fit. It won't necessarily have this matching trim. You can see this is very specific to the Sorento. It's more of a square cover, but I think it would still fit nicely. So anyway, just a heads up in case you wanted to go that direction. All right, got an update. We got our stuff from Amazon. Here are the USB cables that I ordered. So these have a nice little plastic mount there that's going to fit on our module face frame nicely. The rest of this just gets wired behind the dashboard to the area of the radio. So I got 2 of these, and the 2 are going to go right here, as I said. For reference, this is what I ordered from Amazon. You can see the brand name there. But as Amazon goes, these kind of products tend to come and go. But make sure whichever one you get, whether it's this brand or something else, that you research the comments and make sure that people have had success getting these to work with Android Auto or CarPlay. Some cables do not work well. This brand supposedly does, so we'll see. And the other thing I ordered are these guys. These are kind of heat shrink solder connectors with the solder built in. I've never tried these yet. They're a relatively new product. But when I get to the part of wiring the harness, there's going to be a million wires that I need to solder together, and I'm pretty interested in this product. These things were, I got like 120 connectors. This was like 10 bucks on Amazon. There's all sorts of brands of these, and they come in different quantities. I got the quantity 120. There's some that are more, some that are less. So that's it. So later tonight, we're going to carve this guy up and fit those two USB ports on there, and then we can start putting that back together. All right, here is the finished USB module. I have both the cables pushed in through there. I had to use my Dremel tool to carefully Dremel out rectangular holes for these to fit in. It takes some time to fit those right. Be patient, because if you destroy this plastic part, that new module is going to cost you 53 bucks. So anyway, but these cables, a little hard to see, but there's some, I got to get the lighting here. There's some clips in the back. So once you pop these through, the clips stick out and hold it in there. So it's a really tight fit. I tried pushing really hard, so even the tightest USB cable that goes in there is not going to pull these things out of the sockets. So anyway, on the back of just the plastic shell here, I had to Dremel out just a little bit to fit that second cable through. The ends, the USB ends, are kind of heavy duty, so they're a little thick. Anyway, let's put that together. So there, I snapped it all together, and that module is ready to be put back in the car. I'm going to do that tomorrow when it's light out. It's kind of late right now, and it's dark outside. And that almost looks factory, doesn't it? You may notice that those are just a wee bit off center. That's because I wanted to cover up the USB and aux writing and the white circles that were around the holes. I wanted it to all be black, so I had to move these to the left just a hair. Not going to notice that when it's in the car. So that's the little project for tonight. We're going to put that together tomorrow, and we'll be all set for when that radio comes. All right, so we're getting ready to install the USB cables. Ran into an interesting issue. If you look in the back cubby here, you'll see there's this nice little wall. I'm going to illuminate this with a flashlight here. There's this kind of heavy-duty plastic wall that kind of rides right above the door. This is the door here, so you know this goes just underneath that wall, and you can see behind there that's where a lot of the cables come down. This wall thing does not, I can't figure out how to get it out. You have to pull this entire console out to get that. So what I did instead, and this took a while, was to, I did this with the radio removed. But basically, very high tech here. I snaked a coat hanger down through a gap there. It took me about 15 minutes of trying, and eventually saw the coat hanger down here. So I believe there is enough gap way behind this wall, not up here where the wall, this wall pinches against the back there, and back here underneath there's a super tight gap. I don't think a USB cable can get in there, but I'm actually kind of going down this area, so there's a much bigger gap back there. I got the coat hanger to come out, and so I'm going to tape the first USB cable and carefully pull it up, and hopefully end up here in the vicinity of the radio. And then I'm going to do it again for the other USB cable. I don't think I can do this in one shot. I think taping both USB cables onto here, I don't think the clearance is going to work. So that's the next project. I'll let you know when I'm done, but that's the secret, to get that USB cable from the radio down to here. You have to do some interesting things to get that pathway. Of course, the one little thing that is a part of a much bigger project is taking the longest, but yeah, it's typical. All right, success. There was space for these cables. I pulled them out. I got them both there. And I go down here and look at my lower console, and I have a pretty sweet factory looking setup with my USB ports, so I am ready. When you pull your ports out, before you put this together and before you pull the cables, label them. I have a piece of tape on one of these. On my particular radio, there is going to be two USB ports on the back. One of them's gray and one of them's black. The gray one is for Android Auto and the black one is for Apple CarPlay. So it's very important you know which one is which. My car, my left one is going to be the Android. I have that one labeled here with the tape, and so I know that's the one I'm going to plug into the gray port in the back of the stereo. So this piece of console has been popped back. I got to put the other one back. This that just snaps in. That's going to take me about 30 seconds. And then we're good to go till the next step. We'll see you later. One of the previous clips, I showed you that putting that console module back on takes about 30 seconds. That's true unless you're me and you totally forget to connect that connector that powers the parking sensor switch and the drive mode switch. So I had to get out the trim tools and pry that thing back up again, do the connector, and then pop it back in. So 30 seconds for you, 5 minutes for me. Anyway, just a reminder, don't forget to connect all the connectors before you put your console back together. This has been a public service announcement. All right, so tomorrow the radio comes, and as I showed earlier, I got these nifty little solder heat shrink things. I've never used them before, so I'm going to practice on a wire to kind of see how long I got to hold the heat gun, etc. to it. So I'm going to show you one right now. Let's see how it goes. that's about it. I think that looks pretty good. That's not going to be in focus here, but the heat started shrinking a little bit. Then I did see the solder melt a little bit, it looks like. And that's a pretty tight connection. So there you go. That's not too. I have the heat gun on low, by the way, not high. I think if you have it on high, that's going to be too much for the plastic and it's going to melt away. So that process that I just did, I'm going to have to do on about 20 wires when I get that wiring harness tomorrow. All right, well, radio has not come today. I was expecting it to arrive, but UPS has some unforeseen delivery delay. So I'm kind of looking for stuff to do while I wait. I realized that the radio unit has 2 extra inputs that you need to put somewhere. One is going to be GPS that it's used in part in conjunction with your phone for navigation. And the other is a microphone for your phone calls. The directions recommend mounting the microphone right here on top of the steering wheel with it's got a metal clip and a little sticky pad. I'm not super happy about that, so I'm not going to do it that way. Instead, in my car, I'm going to make use of this speaker grill cover. As I said earlier, I have the base unit for my radio, so there's not actually a speaker up here. Again, you get this bad boy out with your trim tool. You got to dig way in there and pry it up. There's a bunch of clips around the outside, and this cover just comes off. You can see the clips there. It's just a piece of plastic. There are 2 sensors on there that plug in on both sides. That's those lumps there. I know one is related to sensing light versus dark for dimming things in your car, that kind of thing. I don't recall what the other sensor's for. But anyway, those stay there. And what I'm going to do is 2 things. One is, since this is just a piece of plastic and not metal, it's perfectly okay to stick that GPS sensor that I'm going to get with the radio under here somewhere. It's in an absolutely perfect place. It's below the windshield. It's going to have a clear signal from the GPS satellites, and I won't have to have that on my dashboard anywhere. The other thing I'm going to do is, this is also where I'm going to hide my microphone for the phone calls. And what I'm going to do there, you can see that's where a speaker goes if you have a speaker there. I'm going to, or I've ordered rather, just a cheap metal plastic speaker grill cover. It's going to be about 3 inches in diameter, and I'm just going to put a dead center here, so it's just going to look like it normally was, just going to look like a speaker, but it's just going to be a speaker cover, and I'm going to have the microphone right underneath there, as that'll be in the front of the car. It's in a perfect spot to catch my voice while I'm on a phone call. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to get that speaker cover for a couple days, but as this is outside of the dashboard, outside of the radio, it really doesn't matter. I can just have my GPS and my microphone just sit there on top of the dashboard until that speaker cover comes. And so what I'm going to do, once that cover comes, I'm going to disconnect these connectors. Going to take the grill cover, Dremel out a hole up here, and that should look actually pretty nice. You won't notice it because it'll look like it's just part of the car. So we'll talk to you tomorrow when I actually get the radio, I hope, and we'll be able to start doing the wiring. All right, so the UPS guy has arrived, and I'm going to give you just a quick review of everything that we got. Item one is the radio itself, or head unit rather. And I opened this up and pulled out the stuff that comes with it. So in here we got the USB cables. You can see there's the gray one and the black one is in there somewhere. But that's the USB cables and another cable that's in there. This is the microphone I was telling you about. You can see the clip. Here is the main wiring harness for the radio. So that black connector is going to plug in the radio. And all these cables are going to have to be connected to the Maestro cables. So I'll show that to you in a minute as well. This guy, that's the GPS that I was also telling you about. And then we have basically the manual and some screws and some ejection tabs in case your DVD gets, or CD gets stuck in the radio. The second thing is the Maestro unit. This thing, this is the thing that's about 150 bucks. This is what provides a whole lot of the factory things that your car has that will integrate with your radio, as well as really smart connections to the computer of your car. You're going to be able to see vehicle gauges and stuff on the radio as well. Here are the wiring bits that come along with the Maestro unit. This is the Metra dash kit for my car. You can see on the top there, this top part right here is kind of where the CD player is on the existing radio, and that just becomes a blank. And then last but not least, this is the vehicle specific wiring harness stuff that comes with the Maestro unit. So basically, to get all this hooked up, it looks like a lot, I know, but it really isn't. Basically, there's a wiring guide that you follow, and these wires right here on the Maestro unit, which are color coded, need to be connected to the wires on this harness that comes with the radio. And so there's going to be those quick solder connections that I'm going to do. As I mentioned before, you can also do the crimp connections if that's your thing. I'm sure those are perfectly okay. I'm going to prefer the solder connections, mostly because if I do the crimp connections, you got the, if these represent the two wires, if you have the crimp connections, the wires come together like this, and it's crimped at the top, and so you end up with kind of this V shape where every wire connects. And you get 20 wires like that, and it kind of takes up a lot of space. By doing the solder type connection, if this represents one wire, this is the other wire, the solder connection is going to go right here, and the resulting wire is going to be straight. That'll make stuffing all those wires into the back behind the radio a little easier, I think. So anyway, that is my project. So next up, next is going to be programming the Maestro unit. So the next step is to take the Maestro unit, plug it into your computer, and run the WebLink desktop software that you get from Maestro. Earlier, I registered for an account. I chose what exact make and model my vehicle is. I also picked what make, model, and serial number of the radio, which is all required. I'm getting almost done here, so it's basically telling me which of my features do I want. These are enabled by default. So the vehicle information, the gauges, the steering wheel controls, the parking assist, which I assume is the rear camera, advanced camera features. The only one that's not available is the climate control. That's basically based on the model of radio that you have. My particular Kenwood unit does not have that. So at this point, I'm just going to continue here. And I'm guessing it's downloading some stuff. So now it's basically giving me the configuration of what do I want all my steering wheel buttons to do. So this actually is a representation of my steering wheel controls. I'm not going to go through this right now on the video, but I'm going to turn this off and go through that and make sure the steering wheel controls do what I want to do. And if I want a button to do something else, this is my opportunity to make those changes. You can come back and do this again if you want to. Every time you reflash your module, you pick how you want it to behave. So I'm going to take care of this right now. All right, so I reviewed everything. I'm actually pretty happy with all the default choices except for one. This guy, that's the phone button. If you click it once, it answers the phone. But for a lot of the buttons, this module gives you an extra thing that you can do if you hold the button down. So I actually changed that from nothing to pull up the phone menu on my head unit. So we're going to hit continue there. And this should be getting ready to flash. So I'm about to flash my module. It's telling me that I got my Maestro unit. Here is my particular vehicle. Here is my particular radio and its serial number, what kind of steering wheel I have, the firmware that it chose for me. It's verifying that I have this particular wiring harness. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to hit flash and we'll be good to go. And now we're going to hit flash. And so this is probably going to take a while, but once this has finished, oh, here we go. We'll just watch it. So it's flashing the unit. And as I said, you can come back at some other time if you need to and redo this. You would only want to do it if either A, there's updated firmware that you might want to load onto the Maestro module, or B, if you want to change the steering wheel controls. Flash completed with success. And they're actually giving me a latest install guide and wallet card. So I'm going to download those, and we're good to go. So the module is programmed and done. All right, so here is my interface from the radio, the wiring harness from the radio side. This is the wiring harness from the Maestro side. And at this point, it's just following a color guide. This is the blue wire from one side, the blue wire from the other side. That is the now already shrunk connector that I put on there. And I got to do this about 19 more times. So there's a bunch of wires. You just do one at a time, and they're all color-coded. It's pretty easy. Looks a lot harder than it really is. Okay, we're all done. This is the radio end of the connector. This is the Maestro side of things, and this is everything in between. So you can see right here, that's where most of those heat shrink solder connections are. After I got everything nicely wired, I taped, tucked the wires in there to keep them all the same length and taped it up so that I have kind of a single set of wires there when I am tucking this behind the radio. If you don't tape it up, you're going to have wires absolutely everywhere. So try to make this harness, when you do it, as neat as possible. That's going to make your life easier later when you're installing the radio. So when you're done with your wiring harness, you are going to have some leftovers, mostly because the wiring harness is designed to connect to a lot of radio wires, but also possibly other wires that are in your car elsewhere at a distance away. The light green wire is going to normally be going to your parking brake. The purple and white wire normally is going to go to your reverse sensor in the car. Both of these on the harness are extremely long, and you can certainly trim them since you're only wiring to the other side of the harness for the Maestro. You don't need to use all 3, 4, 5 feet of these wires. Feel free to cut them to your length. With the 2016 Sorento and the Maestro, this last one also gets cut. This is the ODB2 connector that you don't need because the other part of this red and white wire actually go to that white CAN gateway module that's next to the steering wheel behind the radio, which either you have seen or you will see in this video. So anyway, that's it for the harness leftovers. There's also some leftovers with the Maestro and such that you're going to have, and I'll show those to you as well. Here's all the leftovers that you will have because you got other things. When you get the vehicle specific harness kit, you don't need this harness. So this harness and all the wires that are in there, that actually came with the Maestro unit. And you can certainly do things with these with other vehicles, but when you get the vehicle specific harness, that's of course what makes life incredibly easy. That's the little module, I'm sorry, that's just a USB cord for plugging the Maestro into your computer. I'll save that. These are the 2 USB extension cables that came with the radio. Because I used my own extension cables that came with the dashboard mount that you saw, I didn't need these. Certainly in other situations you can use these cables and just poke them out your dashboard or something, don't know, but I didn't use those. That's a auxiliary video cable of some sort that I didn't need, and then there's 2 camera connections too that weren't part of my vehicle, so I didn't use them. So yes, you are going to have some leftover pieces parts. Well, we're just about ready to hook this all up. Again, this is my wiring harness. I got everything hooked up to it. So these are the connections for the Maestro unit. That's kind of the brains of the outfit that connects the car steering wheel controls and the car computer and sends data to the radio and all sorts of things. Basically, the car connections are going to be, these 2 guys are going to connect to the factory harness of the vehicle. This black one here is going to connect to the back of the radio. This is the backup camera connection that is going to connect to the back of the radio. And the last connection, which is interesting, is this guy. I'm going to talk about this just for a minute. This essentially is an ODB2 connector. This will provide data to the radio from the car, things like gauges and tire pressures and all sorts of cool things. The way that this particular radio goes in my car, the 16 Sorento, I'm actually supposed to cut this cable and wire that to a free connector that's behind the dashboard just to the left of the radio, and I'll show that in a little bit. I can't do that yet because I need some wire taps, and I'll talk about there. But temporarily, before I hook it in its permanent connection, I'm just going to leave this connector connected and hook it to my ODB port, so at least I can get my radio going. I got the radio prepped as well. This case is designed for most American cars, so this comes off, and instead you take the Metra kit and you take these black brackets and you screw them on there. I got the face frame on here, and we're ready to go. Just a quick word on these side brackets. I am not 100% sure that this is how it mounts. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of possible hole locations for the screws. The bracket can probably fit on this radio 2 or 3 different ways, you know, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. The directions only include a very small picture, which is not super clear. This is my best guess, so but if it's wrong, it's an easy change. So we'll see how that goes. So after removing the 2 screws on either side of the radio, you're basically just left with, there's the radio, and all you got to do is unplug those connectors. The 2 white connectors, those will be reused with the new radio. The antenna over here will be reused with the new radio. This one, I believe, is the the Sirius satellite connection. That will not be used. This one, that might be, yeah, that won't be used. And that's the USB port. That won't be used either. So I'm going to unhook these. Okay, so the radio has been removed. I've disconnected the connectors. Tomorrow I gotta cut this bracket out. This is a plastic bracket that's part of the mounting bracket here for the radio. This part stays here. This kind of triangular piece has to come out. So I'm going to cut it here and here. And the Metra sheet that came with the radio also indicates that this metal support bracket should be cut as well. But then the other sheet that came with a different set of instructions for the mounting kit didn't mention that that bracket has to come out. In either way, I don't think I'm going to worry about cutting it. It's fairly bendable and flexible, so if I need this out of the way, I'm just going to push it down. It would actually be kind of nice if that is able to support the radio. In either case, the new radio is much lighter than the factory radio. The other thing to talk about is right down here, way down here, bolted to this metal frame, there's a white connector, and I'm gonna pop it out. I've popped it out once before, so it comes out fairly easily, or it should. Come on, you bugger. All right, so this is the, can't get it to focus. There we go. So you can see there's a white connector back here that's got a bunch of wires. There's some tan ones, there's some black ones, there's some white ones. For the radio's connection to the car computer, there's actually 2 places you can hook it to. One is via an ODB2 port that comes with the wiring harness. You can snake it down and connect it to the ODB2 port, which is behind the fuse box there. I don't particularly want to do that because that's going to utilize the ODB port all the time. The same ODB connection is actually in part of this little white harness that's back here. This is actually an unused CAN gateway to the computer stuff in the car. There's multiple connections there. Basically, I have to tap into 1 black and 1 white wire in there. It's a little tricky. That connector is way back there and it's hard to get to. It's going to be easier to get to once I get this frame out of here. And when I connect to that, the only way to make a connection is to tap into the black and white wire. And the way I'm going to do that is with a couple of Positaps. They're little kind of snap-in, screw-in connectors that tap into a wire. And I found all this out about where to connect in that connector back there by talking to one of the technicians at Crutchfield, because the directions say plug into the black and white wire, but there's a bunch of black and a bunch of white wires, so he helped me figure it out. Basically, I can use any of them. I'm going to utilize the first wires of each thing. So I'll show you that when I actually get to that process. That won't be till later next week. I'm going to cut this thing up tomorrow and hook up the radio tomorrow. I'll temporarily run the ODB2 connector down there so at least the radio can talk to the car's computer. And there we go. So I am ready to mount this tomorrow after I get that cut out. And we'll show you that as we do it in the morning. Okay, so I've pulled the dashboard cover here that sometimes has a speaker if you have a fancier car. I don't. I got the speaker pieces that I bought from Amazon. They're just cheap speaker covers. And under that is where I'm going to hide the microphone and GPS. So I'm going to carve that out and glue some pieces in, and I'll show you the finished product when we're all done. Here's the completed assembly. There's my fake speaker, which is actually for the microphone. That's the microphone right there, aimed at the driver and passenger. And then underneath here, I also use a little hot glue to affix the GPS. I'm a little close to that metal screen there, but most of it has plastic over the top. I think that's going to be okay. We'll find out when I test it. If that doesn't work, or I have too much trouble acquiring a GPS signal, I can move it. It's got to be in this spot on this thing because that's where the cavity is underneath for the speaker. So if this doesn't work, I'll have to find some other place in the car. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Hoping it works here though, because then everything's out of sight. There we go. I think that looks pretty sweet. As I said early on, I'm trying to document every single step of this process. So here is the dash trim for the radio, and this is the Maestro trim plate that I ordered with the radio. And what you do is basically put this in the back here, and if you look really close here, you can see that this is just going to snap on there. They designed this thing extremely well to just snap in here real tightly. So I'm going to try that, and hopefully I don't snap it off in the process. I want to be careful because I don't want to break any of the tabs as I carefully put this in. You gotta kind of squeeze it all the way around, make sure you get all the things to click. There you go, click on the side. Click on the top. And there we go. So that's nice and flush with the trim. It's actually amazingly well built. It's snapped into clips that are all the way around here, and it's nice. It's nice and tight. As I did say before, I'm going to show this in the light here. So there is a nice wide piece of plastic here on both sides. So if you want to not to have as much work as I did for doing the USB ports, you could do the USB ports right along here. You can just drill some holes and snap the cables through there. You can also even put the microphone there if you want. Earlier I was thinking of just drilling a big hole here and holding that microphone poking in from the rear with a rubber grommet. So there's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of space on those sides, so you can use that for something if you think you need to. Otherwise, this is ready. And as I said before, this top part where your CD player used to be, that's now just a blank that's nicely covered by the trim kit. So this is ready for tomorrow. All right, getting ready to cut that bracket out. I'm going to try using an oscillating saw here. In conjunction with a shop vac, so that all the crumbs and crap that come out of the plastic as I cut it are not going to be flying all over inside and outside the dashboard. And I'll show you when I'm done. Can't take a video because this is a two-hand project. And the saw cut through the plastic like a knife through butter. Very, very easy cut on both sides, and all I got to do is remove that bolt and pull it out. All right, now what's remaining is this metal support bracket back here. I have tried bending it up out of the way or down out of the way. It has to go. So the first directions I got initially with the master sheet were correct. So I'm going to pull out my metal blade for that saw and I'm going to cut it right along here. So that's next. We got to get that bracket gone. Surprisingly, this bracket right here, this lower one, the one that held that plastic V-shaped thing, that's just far enough out of the way, which is awesome because that's a much heavier duty bracket and I wouldn't feel like cutting that. So this one we're going to do very carefully, and we'll show you the result of that when we're finished. All right, so that cutting took about 3 minutes to get through that with a carbide tip blade. Just got to take your time, go nice and slow, and don't cut anything you're not supposed to. So now I'm gonna, before I hook up all the cables, I'm gonna test fit the radio to see if those brackets are in the right location. So I'm gonna put the radio in there, probably lock it in there with one screw, and kind of push the trim on there to see how it's gonna fit. If I need to redo these brackets, I'd rather do it now and not when I have all the cables connected. I am a little annoyed at the Maestro instructions though. This bracket actually was in the way a lot. It's a pretty heavy duty bracket and I didn't feel like cutting the whole thing out. So I just took a Dremel tool to the right edge and the left edge, and that allowed me to fold it down a little bit. Clearly those are some pretty sharp edges showing there, so I'm going to tape that up before I start putting things together. So now that we have the radio fit, we know where the Maestro brackets go. They actually go a little bit higher on the radio than I initially thought, but once I figured it out, it lines up very nicely. And so now once I tape that up, I'm going to start plugging together all the connectors and we'll see if it works. All right, so I've tested the radio's fit. That's kind of what it looks like when it's all connected and out there. Fortunately, in the back of the cavity of the Sorento, there's a lot of space. There's a lot of space up here underneath where the speaker used to go. So the wires fit back there pretty much. But back to this connector, instead of tapping into it with Positaps, I've actually manufactured, this is the cable that used to have the ODB2 on there. I've manufactured some pins on here, and I should be able to just jam those into the holes. I experimented with, I finally got a successful connection, but my pins were too short, so I've remade them, and I'm going to try it right now. All right, so basically we're done. I'm starting to screw the radio back in, put the trim on. The steering wheel controls work. All right, so I am finished. I got the radio hooked up. It was a little tricky to try and take video of putting it back in, but it really is nothing more than just carefully tucking those cables in so that they don't get in the way of the radio. You got to kind of work at it a little bit, but I figured it out. I pushed that that Maestro module way in the back. It's actually underneath here. And lifted the cables up a little bit, and the radio dropped right into its bracket. Just had to screw it in there and pop the trim back on, just pushing that till it clicked, and that's it. And you can see that I have all of the things that I wanted here. I got high definition radio going on. I have Android Auto, which actually for this particular model radio and my phone is wireless. Trying to push the button here. There we go. So all the navigation stuff is now built into the radio courtesy of Android Auto. I'm pretty happy with the setup. If I want to do a CD, I just eject the screen and I got a CD slot in here. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I hope that my video was useful to some extent, showing you all the stuff that's involved when upgrading a radio in your Kia Sorento 2016. This is the finished grill up here. This is actually where the microphone is underneath. I did test that out, and that works quite well. My wife told me that the audio was very clear, and I've already tested the navigation, so the GPS works as well, and we're good to go. So I hope you have fun with your radio. Key phrase is take your time. Read the manual and the installation instructions like 3 times. Know what you're doing. If you have a question, call Crutchfield and they'll help you out. So this is Kent. Have a good day.